Hey gang, JD back with some more alpha. Chop chop, we all got other things to do today, I'm sure. Let's get into it. So we are back now with the third episode in our fifth segment regarding negotiating. All those lovely offers you brought in. This segment is about understanding contingencies, and there are many. They are nuanced and convoluted, so we'll try to unpack them a little bit for you here. Now, first things first, let's define the term. What is a contingency? Contingencies in the context of a real estate sale are things that need to be satisfied for the transaction to proceed. Certain criteria that must be met before we can advance the transaction to the next step. Now, the biggest ones, of course, are the inspection contingency, the mortgage appraisal contingencies, and hopefully not a home sale contingency. But we'll go through them one by one. Now, the buyer's financing and that mortgage and appraisal contingency are maybe the most important. The inspections, yes, they can be a problem. There's negotiation that happens there, but generally speaking, if you got willing buyer and seller, we can get past the inspections problem. As long as everyone's willing to play ball, you know, this party pays a little bit, this party compromises a little bit, we'll make an agreement, we'll get past those inspections most of the time. Appraisals and mortgage contingencies, however, it's not really something you can negotiate as a buyer. You can either get the loan or you can't. And when it comes to actually getting into a real estate contract, you want to have as much confidence as you possibly can that the buyer can get the loan before you even get into bed with them. And we'll unpack this again in later episodes. But there's a lot to understand with the optics of a real estate listing coming back to the market if it fails to sell with the first buyer it ends up in contract with. We don't want to look like caca bringing a property back to the market that definitely should have sold and didn't because maybe some homework got missed because you don't need no stinking Realtah. So let's make sure we're detail oriented. We'll go through a little bit more on the financing and appraisal contingencies. So we asked for in our listing information your offer on a purchase sales agreement signed by the buyer and a pre-approval, valid pre-approval from a lender within the last 90 days, hopefully in as short of a period of time from the date that you've seen it as possible. That is allowing us as much knowledge as is customary in getting confident that this buyer can actually get their loan, but there are other steps you could take. We, as real estate professionals, would like to go a few steps further. And to that end, we created things like lender questionnaires. In our listing information, we mandate that all buyers and their agents send a lender questionnaire directly to the horse's mouth to be completed and signed. That horse is the bank, the loan officer, the mortgage broker, whomever is helping this buyer with achieving their lending goals needs to sign off on the fact that they have actually reviewed paperwork to corroborate what the buyer has told them are their circumstances surrounding their financial situation. It is commonly unknown, lesser known today, that you can get a pre-approval just on stated fact, not corroborated fact. You can call up a mortgage lender and tell them, I make $300,000 a year and I've been employed for 20 years and I have the greatest financial situation, the best credit score known to man. I would like a pre-approval for this loan product, please. And it is not required by law that the loan officer or the mortgage lender, whomever they may be, actually check documentation to corroborate these stated facts from the buyer before issuing a pre-approval. So we can understand that a lot of professionals in the space would not like to waste their time. Buyers, agents, real estate professionals don't want to waste their time. Most mortgage brokers and mortgage lenders, loan officers do not want to waste their own time. If they were to issue a pre-approval, nefarious, in my estimation, pre-approval in this manner, they're just wasting their own time. If this person isn't for real and this buyer is just fabricating all of this information or leaving out pertinent facts that they may not even realize affect their ability to secure a loan, the pre-approval is more or less worthless. Mortgage brokers and certainly real estate professionals don't want to waste their time. However, there are those less scrupulous mortgage professionals out there, lending professionals out there, that use this fact to rope in business. Who cares? Issue this person a pre-approval for whatever the amount they want. They'll go out there, stumble over their shoelaces, fall flat on their faces, fail in buying whatever house it is that they want. Then they'll come back to me like, hey, what happened here? And I'll tell them, well, I mean, you didn't tell me that you had debt up to your eyeballs. Sure, it's great that you're making $300,000 a year. And actually, yeah, your credit score is pretty good, but your debt to income ratio is completely upside down. You owe money everywhere. You got 6 cars, you have another house. This is your second home. You didn't tell me about your primary residence. Like, come on, man. And then that mortgage professional has an opportunity to get down into the nitty gritty, already having that person in their pocket as a piece of business. We don't like these people, frankly. Not a good way to conduct oneself, we feel. I'm sure after me explaining it that way, you may feel so as well. So maybe you create your own lender questionnaire. Has this mortgage professional, loan originator, whomever it may be, checked bank balances, checked liquid assets, checked debt to income ratio, run them through a desktop underwriter? Have they looked at court order payments, alimonies? All that kind of stuff goes into the calculation on whether a buyer can actually secure a loan. And if you've got a signature from a loan officer saying that, yes, I've checked these things, could they be lying to you? Sure, but probably not. Who wants to put their professional reputation on the line signing off on a piece of documentation that they'd actually checked it when they hadn't? So then you have a higher degree of confidence that this person can actually get the loan. Maybe you don't have time or the proficiency, the understanding, the legal acumen, whatever it may be, to create some sort of document like this. Just get on the phone. Write down a number of questions. Did you run it through a desktop underwriter? Have you checked their debt to income ratios? All of these different things. Check off the boxes, yes, 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 in your own record keeping, and then you can be very sure. We don't want to get, and the appraisal and the loan underwriting process happens kind of in the back half of the contract period. First you have getting that contract signed, then you have inspections to go through, and the appraisal and that kind of thing happens at the end. You could be in contract with this person for 30 days before finding out they can't get the loan, and you really don't want that to happen. So make sure you're being detail-oriented when you're exploring the mortgage contingency and appraisal. As I described in the previous episode, you don't always have to have a mortgage contingency at all. There could be a capable buyer that has the cash to close but wants to get a loan. They would represent in the purchase sales that they don't need a mortgage contingency. Otherwise, conventional loans, the purchase and sales could be written without a mortgage contingency. And as it happens, if the buyer's agent aren't really doing their homework and making sure they're being detail-oriented and not writing in the purchase and sales agreement that the property must appraise at or above the purchase price, in the conventional lending world, there is not necessarily a mortgage contingency unless it's written in there. If it's a VA or an FHA loan, there's an appraisal and a mortgage contingency by law. The property has to appraise at or above the purchase price, or you won't be able to do the deal, unless, of course, the buyer comes up with the extra cash, which we assume they cannot if they're doing these type of loan products. But to pause there and give you a little bit more alpha, just because somebody is representing that they're going to buy your home with an FHA loan doesn't mean they can't qualify for a conventional. So if in your review process you find you love this offer, but you really don't want to suffer the longer underwriting process of an FHA loan or a VA loan or one of these other more complicated lending products, you don't want your home to be subject to an FHA appraisal and all the nonsense about peeling paint and all this complications that we've mentioned in previous episodes and will be more detailed in explaining in later episodes. You can go and ask, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer or their agent, is this buyer capable of going conventional rather than an FHA loan, perchance? Maybe the answer is yes, and that will win them the bid. They're excited. They won the bid. You get the offer that you crafted specifically to your specifications. That's best for your situation. So we understand a little bit more about the appraisal contingencies, mortgage contingencies, and otherwise. As for inspections, let's unpack that a little bit. Now, we talked previously a little bit about inspection contingencies in the previous episode. We understand that in Rhode Island, the allotted timeline for a buyer to complete their inspections is 10 business days from the date of signing. That can be as many as 14 days in some cases, including weekends. More if there's a bunch of holidays in there, so be cognizant of that. And the buyer has virtual unlimited authority to do inspections inside your home, and as many of them and as frequent as they'd like. Of course, you can push back, hey, you've already been in here 6 times doing inspections. You had a carpenter in here, you had a plumber, you had an electrician. I mean, come on. Do you not have enough information yet to decide on what you would like to do? Are you backing out of this deal? Are you asking me for some credits? Do you want some things getting fixed? Like, come on, let's hurry up here. Unfortunately, that may fall on deaf ears. The buyers have as much time as they'd like if you have accepted their offer with a traditional mortgage or inspection contingency, excuse me. Anything is possible if it's agreed to by buyer and seller. Maybe we, as I mentioned in the previous episode, shorten that inspection period to 5 days. Maybe, in the best case scenario, they waive their right to inspections. So you don't have this contingency in front of you at all. It's not making you vulnerable to whatever it is somebody finds in their home. However, being a good person, I would like a buyer to be able to inspect what would be probably the largest asset purchase in their lifetimes. You want them to understand it. You don't want to sell somebody a lemon. However, you also don't want to leave yourself vulnerable to that contingency. Maybe there's a middle ground. If this person is so sure that they are willing to buy your home, maybe they've done something like written into the purchase and sales contract that the inspections they plan to do are purely for informational purposes. Very common to see this in offers today. The buyer is representing that no matter what they find, doesn't matter what this inspector finds in there, it could be a nest of aliens that are going to implant young in their throats and their babies are going to explode out of their stomachs. Even if we find that nest, I'm still going to buy your home. It says that right in the purchase and sales contract. However, the legal waiver of the inspection contingency is not signed. That sounds like a load to me, and in fact it is. The inspections for informational purposes only moniker that is really a misnomer. It's not. It's a full inspection contingent deal, and that buyer can walk away without any legal ramifications, even though you put that in the contract. Even if you took them to court, that waiver is not signed saying I relinquish my legal right to this contingency, then in practicality, that little quip they put in the purchase and sales contract about it being for informational purposes only is a load and completely irrelevant and has no teeth. So what I have had done in my experience in the past, I've called their bluff. I mean, put your money where your mouth is then. If these really are for informational purposes only, then sign that waiver. You can still do as many inspections as you like. Find that alien nest. But you're not getting out of this deal. You're buying this home. Feel me? Make sure you are contacting your buyers and their agents and negotiating this type of stuff, especially in a multiple offer situation. People will bend and you will get the offer and contract that you really want. Escalation addendums we talked about. We can just touch on that again. We want to elicit the highest offers possible by doing our marketing in the best possible manner. We've hit the nail on the head. We got all these multiple offers, but people don't want to outbid themselves by going up 25 grand above asking price when they don't know if there's even one other offer at asking price. So what they'll do is offer an escalation. 2, 1, $5,000 above the higher bidder. This buyer is willing to go, and they're offering that out of the gate. I will pay you $5,000 more than the next guy, up to a cap sometimes, and commonly up to a cap of whatever number, so it's not completely unlimited. Now, remember how this causes problems, however, in the appraisal contingency category. If you're getting a cash offer with an escalation addendum, whoop-de-doo. You've really attained the holy grail now. This person's willing to pay you an almost unlimited amount of money and they have the cash to back it up. But if they're financing, the bank may not agree with that inflated purchase price and you may not end up getting it anyway. So focus in on some of the other characteristics of the offer. What type of lending are they getting? Can they give you appraisal gap insurance? Okay, you have this awesome escalation addendum. You're willing to pay me all this money, but then I'd also like to know if the appraisal doesn't come in at the right number, you're still willing to pay more money, right? Make sure you are getting all of this fleshed out on paper before you sign this this purchase and sales agreement, or else you're locked in. You really can't change it thereafter, and it's going to be what it is. And then lastly, the home sale contingency. Now, this isn't to say that these are the only contingencies. These are the most common and certainly the most problematic, the most important for you to focus in on. But buyers and sellers can agree on anything. There can be contingencies about personal property, for instance. I'm only buying your property if you leave that grand piano in the living room. I like to play, and it really looks nice. I am only going to buy this house if you agree to leave the ping pong table, and I want all the flat screen TV mounts on the walls left behind it. The list goes on and on. Properties are very variable. We're not just talking about single family residences. It could be commercial. I want the tenants out by the time I take possession. The list goes on and on. Make sure you are hyper-focused on all of these contingencies. But again, we're going to go through the home sale contingency once more, as these are the most common. So your buyer wants to buy your home, you love their offer. Every different part of it is exactly what you want. However, unfortunately, they need the proceeds from the sale of their own home to be financially qualified to buy yours. It's a problem. There are almost an infinite number of layers of risk now flopped on top of your sale transaction because of the vulnerability to your buyer's sale. And we really have to cue in here on where they are in that transaction. So in today's market, if you're receiving a home sale contingent offer, you better make sure that they got a buyer locked up already. It's almost 0% of the time does it make sense for you to take that offer besides one of the other attractive offers that you may have because you did your job very well. Let's say it just is. It's by far and away, it's just such an ungodly chunk of money, plus the appraisal gap. You're going to get paid really well if this person's house sells and they're able to consummate the transaction with your sale. You want them to be just about finished with their transaction. Definitely the house is on the market. The house is on the market and doesn't have a buyer yet, that's really problematic. If the house is on the market yet, doesn't have a buyer yet, but is like gorgeous, brand new, no problems with it. It's been lived in 4 years and there's not been any problems with it on the property disclosures. The marketing's done super well. They got a very talented sales agent behind them that has done tons of transactions. Maybe in this circumstance, you could take the leap of faith you need to get into contract with this person with their home still not having a buyer in contract. Much, much better is if they've got a buyer in contract already, they've already passed the inspection period successfully. Either it was waived or they did the inspection is even better. Better is they did the inspection and they've already gotten through the negotiations. They've signed that, we're going to agree to this or that amount of money as a credit or conduct this repair. If there are repairs that need to be done, make sure they're finished. We don't want you getting into bed with a home that needs a new roof. The seller's promised to put the new roof on it. The contractor starts work, something happens, the seller runs out of money, the roof doesn't get done, that sale falls apart, your sale falls apart. Mouthful of marbles there, pardon me, but you get the idea. It's a domino effect, and you can't let there be too many dominoes in between you and affecting your transaction. Even better still is their past inspection and appraisal. The inspections happen first, then the appraisal, which we've gone over that many times. The appraisal is conducted and comes back at value. Now they are just doing the rest of the bank underwriting process. There's still many things that can go wrong between this point and that buyer actually successfully selling his or her home and being able to financially, to be capable financially of buying yours. But there are far, 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 far fewer at that point. Even if their buyer for that home buys a new car, doesn't think about how that's going to affect the debt-to-income ratio, and all of a sudden they can't afford the loan because they got too much debt, poof, the whole thing goes up in smoke. You lose both transactions. You get the idea. Very, very dangerous, very risky. You got to be on your toes, really on the ball if you're going to pull one of these off. And if it sounds too scary, it's because it is, and you should probably call a real estate professional. So there you have it. Those are the big contingencies, the ones we really want you to be hyper-focused on. We want you to really take away from this episode also that if you don't like it, change it. It's just because you set a highest and best deadline and a lot of offers came in with the understanding that this is the highest and best offer from that buyer. They think it's their highest and best offer. Things can still change, especially in an ultra competitive market like the one we're living in today. Do the legwork. Be the negotiator. I know it's tough. Nobody likes those uncomfortable conversations, but you're a go-getter, darn it, and you don't need no stinking realtor, so get out there and do it. Craft that best offer that fits the best with your selling goals and get her done. We'll see you on the final episode in just a second.